All right, go ahead and read this one.
Many vaccines create immunity to viral diseases by introducing a certain portion of the disease causing the virus's outer coating into the body. Exposure to that part of the virus is as effective as exposure to the whole virus in stimulating production of antibodies that will subsequently recognize and kill the whole virus. To create a successful vaccine of this type, doctors must first isolate in the disease-causing virus a portion that stimulates antibody production. Now that a suitable portion of the virus that causes Hep E, has been isolated, doctors claim they can produce a vaccine that will produce permanent immunity to that disease. Which of the following, if true, most strongly counters the doctor's claim?
All right, so what is the doctor's claim?
They can produce a vaccine that will produce permanent immunity to disease.
Yep, so our claim is...
But how did they get there? They can they have the ability to create a vaccine that can isolate the disease that stimulates antibody production.
So why do they, okay, so why do doctors claim that they can produce this vaccine that will produce permanent immunity to that disease? So if I was reading this, I would say many vaccines create immunity to viral diseases by introducing a certain portion of the disease causing viruses outer coating to the body. So many vaccines create immunity to these diseases by, putting a part of the disease into our body and creating exposure. Exposure to that part of a virus is as effective as exposure to the whole virus in stimulating production of antibodies that will subsequently recognize and kill the whole virus. So they're saying just having a little bit of exposure is enough to prevent it from from killing the whole thing. To create a successful vaccine of this type, doctors must first, what must doctors do? They must isolate in the disease-causing virus a portion that stimulates antibiotic production. Now that a suitable portion of the virus that causes Hep A has been isolated, we're now saying that we can do it. How would you weaken this, even though we have one of the things needed in order to create this disease or create this virus or create this vaccine? Why might we still not be able to create a vaccine that will permanently delete it?
I originally thought that maybe it just progressed along too far.
Okay, but it progressed along too far, which means what?
It evolved too far beyond the reach of immunity from the vaccination attempts.
Like what I'm thinking is there must be something else that's needed in addition to just this, right?
If they get it twice.
Get what twice?
A disease. Like what if they still get it after the vaccine?
But we're right. But why? But that's not, we don't care about like that. We care about why this vaccine, why might they not be able to produce a vaccine that will produce permanent immunity to the disease? Why might they not be able to do that?
Maybe
That's what we're looking for.
the disease causing the virus.
What?
They can isolate it.
But we know they can. And being able to isolate it is needed, right? We know that you need to be able to isolate it, and we know that we can isolate it. But why is that maybe not enough to produce a vaccine?
Everybody reacts to it different.
Okay, think simply, just like something else might be needed too, right? Just because we can do this doesn't mean that we're going to get a vaccine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not sufficient. Do you see how this is necessary, but it's not sufficient?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to say like, hey, there's something else that is needed that we don't have. All right, so go ahead and read A for me.
Most of the people who contract Hep E are young adults who are probably exposed to the virus in childhood also.
Okay, so what do you think about that answer?
I like it for now, but I mean...
Okay, let's leave it.
I know the answer.
Oh, you do? Okay, we'll go on to B.
Some animals exposed to one strain of Hep virus develop immunity to all strains of the virus. It's not really what's going on here, though.
Does it have to be going on? Do we get to bring in new information for weakening questions?
No.
Yes, we can. We get to bring in new
Yes. Yeah.
information.
Yes.
Okay, but so because one lab animal exposed to one strain of Hep virus developed immunity to all strains, like who cares about lab animals, right? And this actually is kind of going the direction that we need, so it doesn't weaken it. So it can't be B. Okay, what about C?
If anything, that just like says the process works.
C, researchers developed a successful vaccine for another strain of Hep B after first. Yeah, that's strengthening it. That's going the wrong direction.
If anything, D says that's just like, if anything, like that shows that we need a vaccine.
Yeah, that's just, yeah, that's not saying that we can or cannot create a vaccine. It's just showing you like why we need it.
This
Excellent.
is what I thought was the answer.
D. D or E?
Yeah, E, because that would show that we don't even need, like, we don't have to worry about vaccines because, like,
Yeah,
at some
but
point,
are we trying to weaken the idea that we need a vaccine?
I think we're trying to weaken the idea of like their effectiveness.
No.
No,
What are we trying? What is our conclusion?
doctors claim they can produce a vaccine that will produce permanent immunity.
So what are we trying to weaken?
Permanent immunity.
No, well, kind of, but we're trying to weaken that doctors cannot create the vaccine. We don't care if we need the vaccine. We don't care if it's a good vaccine. We don't care about, all we care about is that the doctors cannot produce a vaccine that will be permanent immunity. So just because many children who are exposed to viruses that cause childhood diseases, such as never develop those diseases, cool. But does that mean when we're talking about chicken pox, do we know if Hep B is like chickenpox?
No.
No. So that can't be our answer. The correct answer is going to be A because most, so I love how strong this is, of the people who contract Hep B are young adults who were probably exposed to the virus in childhood. What this is saying is like even when you're exposed to the virus once, you can still get it again. So
Mhm.
even if we create a vaccine based on this, is it going to create permanent immunity? No, because people have already been around it and they're getting it again.
Yeah, makes sense.
Awesome.